Chair, I'm Job Moura, Head of Press.
Is that all, Governor? Okay.
Yeah, so thank you, Governor, and welcome. We more perceptive, as you may know, we had sought to have a number of conclusions on these issues, and one of the things that we're very keen on as a committee is the dignified handling of residents from these various estates, 13 of them to be particular now, in the middle of this development process. We wanted to have a conclusion on that, whether that is being handled in a just and dignified manner. But then the second issue that we were very keen on as a committee is to be able to explore from both your perspective and the representative's perspective whether there is good agreement and perhaps even some guarantees of what happens after the development has been done. Will the residents get fair share of, whether allotment or otherwise, provision of the same unit after development? I think this is really the major issue in this kind of development: the current state of affairs and the future state of affairs. And wanted to establish a congruence between the county government and the residents of these 13 estates. So we have just gone through a comprehensive status update, which I want to take you back to, because most of those materials actually came from your side in terms of updating the Senate. And I wanted to give just the members time to perhaps canvass on those materials that have been read by the clerk. Then now, because the governor is here, perhaps then I'll give the governor to lay bare his status report, and then we can open it up as a conversation between us, the governor and the leaders, esteemed leaders from the estates that we have represented in this house. I might also tell you, Governor, that we had sought to have 13 estates come, but unfortunately we only have 5 who have come. Partly we own up because that was a problem from our secretariat. I think that they were not able to reach to the other 8, but nonetheless we have agreed that we will find an avenue of convergence in terms of just being able to engage those other 8, because I think that it's important that all of them are engaged in this process. So go ahead, Senators.
Chair, with your permission, it will be useful for us to know which representatives we have. I know they had introduced themselves.
Yes.
But I'll be happy to also know who exactly we have.
We will just give you the name of the estates, and most of them, there are leaderships that are here. But then I will request that when the time comes that you're given to give a contribution, when you be contributing, just say your name, your designation, and the estate where you come from, for the benefit of the governor and the House. I think that would be good. So, Clerk, may you go ahead and read the estate represented?
Thank you, Chair. We have Lumumba Estate, Ofafa Jericho Estate, Maringo Estate, New Pumwani, and the Woodley Estate. So we have 5 estates.
There are only 2 estates here. That would be Kariobangi North and Woodley, that are at the project execution phase. And I have not seen the representation from Kariobangi North, perhaps because we had agreed that we would want to hear from the residents on what is transpiring on the ground. Perhaps you could take the representatives from, say, Woodley first, and then maybe Lumumba, because there were certain promises or undertakings that were given by the governor with regards to engagement of the residents in those areas, with regards to this particular project. But just from the recap there, I was proposing to my colleagues here that we make follow-ups on the specific matters that had been agreed upon, including the questions of the MOUs with the residents, whether that has been done, in which estates that has been done, the status of public participation in the remaining estates, because we only have 2 where the project has taken off. The binding agreements, or the agreements with the developers in those other estates, and maybe we take it from there. But I would like to hear, Chair, with your permission, from the representatives of the estates on what exactly is going on currently, especially for those that Governor submitted public participation had problems, and where projects have begun.
Other members?
Chair, that's okay. Would benefit from that lead. Though I don't know, Senator Sifuna, whether you'll be amenable to a situation where we first allow the governor to give us a status report on the 5 estates that are represented here, so that then we can now get the residents to react to what the governor said. Then we engage them going forward. Because, Chair, remember what we said when we began, we need to bank some things here. Today, at least, let's conclude on certain issues. I don't know whether Senator, that would be fine with you.
That would be fine. I was only being sympathetic to the governor who has just walked in, to give him some time to acclimatize. But if he's ready to go, I have no problem.
I know this climate.
Order.
And I like it.
Order, Governor. Senator Chute?
I think I support what Senator Umbo has just said.
Okay, very well. I think I'm in congruence with the 2 of you senators. But before I give the governor, perhaps Senator Miraj has just walked in. Please, Senator Miraj, may you put yourself on record?
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Senator Miraj Abdullahi, member of the committee.
Thank you, Senator. Very well, Governor. So could we perhaps just have a status report from you? Because I think that actually will help us even have some input from the representatives, because that will be like a more, almost the ultimate kind of update that you can be able to get, to be able to have a sober conversation with the representatives. So, Governor, I want to give you this chance to perhaps give us just an update from yourself and from your office, and then I'll open it up.
And so, Chair, as the governor does that, I would actually want to hear from him in presence of the residents, telling us and the country what is materially different between this regeneration program, the affordable housing, and the social housing, so that we don't mix issues. If we are dealing with the generation, then how different is it from the affordable housing thing? Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. And Governor, perhaps for the benefit of senators particularly, and also the residents in general, should you have any hard copies that you'll be referring to for this particular session? Just in case, if you have, it will be in order to perhaps share with the senator at these points that as you make reference, you can be able to refer to them as well. Governor, it's your time.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and senators, and of course, my esteemed residents of Nairobi. Chair, I'll give a brief background. First of all, you've asked about documents. The documentation is, I presume, the same that we had given before, that is with you. I'll not make any reference to anything else apart from just history, which I know of. These are estates, thank you for the water, that we have known, we have lived in, we have relatives who are part of this residence. And so this is something that is very important to all of us as the people of Nairobi. Chairman, the 5 estates that are mentioned are part of many more estates that Nairobi County government owns and intends to improve through our urban regeneration and urban renewal program. These estates were built right from the 1930s. If you look at Ziwani Estate started, the blueprint was in 1939. and it was the lead architect and consultant there was one G. Fletcher. It was one of the first African decent housing settlements in the city. Before that, Africans were staying in squalor and in really terrible conditions, as has become the case now in many parts of the city and many of our urban areas. Jericho is also one that is historic from the 1950s. It's an estate that has produced a lot of Kenyan heroes. The first person to raise our flag, hoist it on Mount Kenya, Kisoi Munyao. We've had Napunyi, the boxer. We've had Barack Obama Sr. and many of these people, who lived there. And you'll find the remnants of their history, because the nature of these estates, and the residents will tell you, is that a lot of these houses are passed on through the family. So you'll find a child, an uncle, leaves it to a nephew, and that is the case as it is in all of them. Woodley, and I can see my friend representing Woodley here, was started by Sir Richard Woodley, who was a councillor, rather named after Sir Richard Woodley. Again, in the 1940s, that one housed more of our senior staff of the city council. It was a bit more affluent. The kind of houses you had there have more space and more land. There were initially 300 tenants at Woodley, which is why the development we're doing, phase 1, is called 300 Woodley. And I can go on and on about all of those. Jericho, of course, is named after a prominent Kenyan politician who was assassinated, Ambrose Ofafa, during the clamor of independence, And Mbotela was also murdered at the same space at Bama, which was later torched. The idea at that time was to create conflict between communities and to make the Western communities, that is Luyas and Luos, blame the Mau Mau for those murders. And so as I close that, at that time, a lot of work went on. Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, together with Tomboya, would go around Makongeni and these estates preaching peace, telling people don't react, don't respond, and we go to our independence. Now, the urban renewal program that we have, its essence is, first of all, in line with the intention, the original intention of these estates was to provide housing to Nairobians. Our population has, of course, gone up. These estates won't fill the population gap, definitely, but it'll reduce pressure in many of these areas. And the example I can give is Woodley, where the first phase of 43 units are giving way to 1,975 units. There are 1,975 families who will be able to have a decent house and an apartment with all the amenities that come together with it. They're all at different stages of development. In Woodley, we were able to bring down the houses, and the site has been secured. The residents had gone to court opposing. And I understand when you live somewhere for so long, you're sentimentally attached to that place. In fact, you consider yourself an owner. Yet the courts agreed with the county that the county is the landlord, is the owner. And so long as the plan has gone through the proper process, the county can redevelop these estates. Now, the difference between urban renewal or regeneration, as it were, with affordable housing is in a number of things. Number one, the affordable housing being done by the national government is based on a statute. And in that statute, there's a levy, which all of us are paying. Everybody on our payroll is paying a housing levy. And so from your contributions, the housing fund has billions through which they're building these houses. It is to meet a social, low-income need that there is. That is not the intention of ours. Number one, we're not drawing from housing fund for our main urban renewal houses, apart from the one lot that I explained last week of Bahati, where national government has approached us asking, if the land then will be available once we've done the decanting, that they can be able to put up units. And we've said we're treating it just like how we're treating all the other joint ventures, that even as they do that, the county shall get its share of houses. The county will get its share of houses, We're the first country to negotiate that, actually. Others have a different negotiation. I sat down with the PS to make sure that we get our right. Because remember, I have also a huge component of county staff. We now have 19,000 members of staff in Nairobi County under my administration, who we also want to provide for decent housing, as it were. I made a promise when I was a senator of Nairobi, and as I campaigned, knowing for a fact that the model where people who've been living in these houses are then told that go and you'll come back and have the first priority to pay rent until you own it was unfair. I feel it's unfair, and I felt it's unfair. Because by very nature of the relationships these people have with the original tenants, there are very few, and they'll tell you there are very few that have changed hands. That card stays in the family. I say that we shall acknowledge the tenancy within our records. And once the houses are completed, they will get the house for free. And it is really not for free, because then if you consider it a back mortgage, what they've been paying, all these years, then it is a recognition and it's goodwill of the contribution that these tenants have had. I still stick to that position. We passed it in our cabinet, in the county government, and that's the position that we hold. That every family that has a card that is in our register, because a card is, you don't just hold it, it reflects with our records, will get their house. They will get a house. They will have ownership. They will not be renting. They will not be paying the county rent. The only thing that they might have to pay then is service charge, because you must service these places for garbage collection, cleaning, etc. That is the only amount that they will then have to pay at that point. Remember, there will also be other tenants who come in who had never been part of this history, who have never lived there, but who will be paying rent or will have bought these houses. So there's some which will be bought, some which will be rented, and then some which, of course, will have those who had been there. That is a stark difference between urban regeneration and social housing. It is because if you look at social housing, the reason they need a fund is many of the areas where these houses are being done may not be economically viable or attractive to the private sector. But our estates are very attractive to the private sector, which is why, if you look at the tender we did, they were falling over each other, to come and bid for those slots. Because they have seen that commercially, they can be able to build, relinquish the units owed to the county, and make a profit. Because they have an imperative of profit, they're businessmen. They're not doing it because they love Kenya. They have a profit imperative. And that is why, all of them have structured their financing to be able to reflect that. Now, we've told them that they must do certain things. Number one, there are certain areas where historically, and I took through my lawyers and urban, planning and housing team through the history of all these estates. You will not demolish Jaramogi Oginga Odinga's house. You will not. We want you to retain that or something to show as a museum. This is where Jaramogi Oginga Odinga was staying. You will not go to Shauri Moyo and take down the house where Tomboya used to stay in when police would barge into his house, during the time of the Kapenguria 6 and find him with Julius Nyerere and with a small leather pouch where he'd collect money to pay Dennis Pritt, the lawyer for the Kapenguria 6. It would be so bad to lose that history. And there are many other examples. And these houses also should provide, if you go to Jericho, boxing is big in many of these estates. We need those social amenities to be put into those estates. Whether it is a new social hall, a bigger one, whether it is also maintaining Camp Toyo, which has gone into dereliction because it was being run by CDF, we've asked for it, and many other examples, Chairman. So I think that gives you the background and the history. I will ask my chief officer, the CEC is also here, Senator. CEC Patrick Mbogo is here. But I'll ask the chief officer to just run us through the specifics now of those 5 estates. In addition to the allotment, and the Woodley residents will tell you, those who signed and agreed with the county have all been given an allotment letter, which has force of law. An allotment letter is like a title deed. You can go get a loan with it. You know, it is proof of ownership. It is legal tender. It is recognized, and they've been given. But we also compensated, and I can't even call it a compensation, because it is not your house we have taken. Your landlord is giving you rent to go pay elsewhere, and a house to come back and stay in. In fact, the courts were very surprised that that has never been seen or done. But our thinking is, the imperative of the county is not to be profit-making. You know, we're not trying to do business with our people. If 43 houses are giving me 1975, and that's just one example, my chief officer will give you the breakdown of the others, then it would be so greedy for government to also want to press harder on those 43 that have yielded, or of those 20, you know, or others. So, Chair, I will ask Chief Officer to then take us through.
Just a point of order, Chair, before the CEC comes in.
Senator?
Yes, Governor, it's good to give that broad background. We like to ask some specific questions just about the things you've said.
Yeah.
Number one, with the negotiation with the national government about Bahati,
Yes.
what is the percentage housing the county government is getting? Number two, there is a report in today's dailies about people allocated this affordable housing, ending up selling them. I want to know what measures have been put in place by your county government to ensure that beneficiaries of all these units cannot resell them. Thirdly, when you were here last, you told us about this cabinet memo for the existing tenants to get their houses for free. Have you now submitted that cabinet memo? Because we need to see it. And lastly, a copy of that allotment letter, has that been supplied? Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Okay, let me answer those. On Bahati, we've not yet gotten down to the specific percentages. It's a discussion, it's an ongoing negotiation with the PS Hinga. Once we've done that, because we've not yet released it to them, you know, but that is the framework that we are, you know, in discussion with. Once we agree on the percentages of housing, we shall be able to submit that. It hasn't gone into that stage.
On that, before you leave that, so,
Yeah.
but at least the bare minimum is
Yeah.
that every person that has a unit now
Yes,
will
must get a unit.
Must get a unit.
That's
a bare minimum.
That's a reducible. That's a reducible minimum. But of course, we see we can get more value than that. You know, over and above those who are being getting a unit. On the issue of affordable housing and people selling them, that is a national government problem, because their model is different.
I raised that because of Bahati only.
No,
you are in conversation with the national government. You said we are going to utilize the housing fund for this.
Yeah.
That is the only reason I bring it up.
It is one lot. There are 3 lots in Bahati.
Governor, even that one lot is important for us to get those answers.
Listen, Senator. The one lot that the county owns will absorb everyone who is there. Currently. One lot will absorb everyone who is there. For us, these tenants who are here, who get an allotment letter, if they choose to sell the unit, it is theirs. Remember, all these other units are also being bought by people. They're also being bought. It's, you know, what value do you have getting a title if you can't transact business with it? So that our model is different from the national government model. It's completely different. You have your house. If you want to sell it, if you want to rent it out, it will be up to you. But it's a commercial transaction. That is why it is corporate entities coming into our JV, into JV with us. On the issue of CAB memo, I think we can produce that. I don't know if we had submitted, I'll check, but we have it. It was actually one of the first cabinet meetings that we had, where we reinforced that promise that we'd made and that is in the manifesto. So that we can provide. But beyond the cabinet memo, the Woodley people are a direct example. They are holding allotment letters. And we can get a, do you have a copy?
You know, Governor, it is this is the reason why we say we should always remember where last this conversation stopped.
Yeah.
Last meeting you had undertaken to provide those documents. We need to see them. And you know why I'm asking that we need to see them, given our previous interactions before the Energy Committee, that sometimes you say things, then you don't write them down.
Senator, the issue of the allotment you can get.
That's what I'm saying.
It's a document. Before the end of the meeting, you'll have a copy.
We spoke about it last time, So just provide it before.
You'll get it.
I just want to encourage you, Senators. I'm a very lenient chair, but let's try to speak through the chair. I want this to be a good engagement.
Yeah, so
that applies to both sides.
Yeah, so Chair, I mean, those are very straightforward documents. They're public documents, and they should be found within this meeting. Of course, we'll redact the name of the person on the allotment letter, but it's just to show you how an allotment letter looks like, and the specific ones that we've already issued. That is only on where we've already issued allotment letters through our lands department. Our chief officer is here.
Through the chair.
Senator Wambua.
And when we come to that, then it will be important because we have representatives from Woodley.
Yes.
To confirm that they have actually received those allotment letters.
Yeah, I'm giving a small leeway so it can be a conversation. And as you can see, you already see the environment is good for conversation.
Yeah.
But I think some of this will also be delved in if we give the biggest stakeholders in the House today is actually the representatives.
Yeah,
so that's why I'm trying to be lenient, so that let the governor finish, and perhaps I want substantive follow-up question like what Senator Sifuna has asked, so that the ones that we can be able to delve in terms of granular questions can come, or insights can come from the other side of the. Because I'm very keen to listen to the residents and I want to give them adequate time. So I don't know whether there's any other senator who has got any substantive follow-up, but if there isn't, I wanted to request that perhaps Senator Sige puts herself on record. She's a member of this committee and she just walked in when the governor was presenting.
Thank you very much, Chair, members and guests as well from the governor's team. My name is Senator Crystal Sige. I'm a member to this committee.
Senator Chute, I see you want to say something?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Very quick one. In the last time we had a conversation with the governor, the percentage for the county government of Nairobi was 30%. My question would be, if he's going to have a deal with the Department of Housing, how is he going to expect to get the 30% and at the same time give the land to the housing department for affordable housing? How does it work?
Governor, please, may you respond to that?
Chair, the 30% varies. The percentage varies based on the value of the land. Remember, we discussed that. The value of the land vis-a-vis the development. You might find a place where the value of, if the land is 2 billion shillings, Senator Chute, through the chair, and then you add the entire development and it comes to 6 billion, then you're talking 30%. But if the entire development comes to 10 billion, it cannot be 30%, you know. And I think I gave examples of how you then have a graduated scale of ownership of the JV based on different milestones. What we're trying to avoid is what happened in the coast. And I know you're very passionate about that because it left people with a bad taste. And to be fair to them, and also to be fair to the first administration of Nairobi, remember, no county had done this before. You know, that's why we have our challenges in Pangani and in, what do we call this, in Jivanji. But those challenges are being unraveled now, and we're sorting it out, you know. The issue of the title deed that had been charged in, Jivanji. If one was to not be pragmatic, you'd say cancel this entire thing. But people have purchased houses, they have units. You don't cut off your nose to spite your face. You say, okay, yes, they did that. And if it was illegal, the agencies of the law should follow those who gave those titles. But to be pragmatic is to secure the interests of your residents and those who have bought units in those houses. And I'm very happy to report that there is tremendous progress in Jivanji. It's going really well. The first tenants should be coming back soon, to their units, and we shall issue them. In as much as that started before my county government, we shall find a way to
Sorry,
make sure.
Governor, I want to just request anybody whose their mic is on, just to switch them off, so that we don't have the echoes. Governor, proceed.
Yeah, so Chair, allow me then to have my chief officer go into the specifics of the 5 estates.
Yeah, but before that, because your presentation was a substantive one, that I was giving the senators to give a substantive question to you,
Yes.
and then
Sorry,
we can
I think I missed Senator Crystal's.
Yes. She did ask a question, but I wanted to ask you 4 substantive questions, which I also want the representatives also to actually take note, because there will be point of conversation. The first one, Governor, in your presentation, you have very well focused on the historical development of these estates, and which is very highly appreciated. But that with that historical representation also come with historical tenancy, if you may see what I mean. Because if you start the story from 1960 to where we are right now, it is my humble judgment that then you would have different tenants over time, which can bring about the issues of succession of tenancy, which is a very important one for me, because then classification of those tenancies then must be very clear. Do we have secondary tenancies, or do you have primary tenancies? And how do you go about that in terms of identifying who then do you classify as the tenant who will qualify for the real deal that you are presenting? So I wanted you to talk about that historical succession of tenancies. So that would be number one. And the second issue that I'm very keen on, although I'm not a resident of Raila, I'm from Migori, but I'm a very passionate son of this country. And I strongly believe that the approach to Nairobi, being a primate city in the continent, and if you think about just the kind of business that Nairobi attracts, it certainly needs a metropolitan approach in terms of management. And that was attempted in the previous administration, not well executed because of a number of vested interests, but that doesn't take away the idea of a properly run metropolitan city. Whether it's by the county government is immaterial, but just in terms of the principle of it. And that then brings the idea of how then do you integrate proper infrastructure into these major estates in terms of your development and planning. Because you've got about 18 of them that have been earmarked, 13 of them that you're very well thinking about planning. But is there a proper thinking around just the infrastructure that integrates into the city in your common planning of it? You know, are you thinking about things like cable cars? Are you thinking about things like the train access? What is the infrastructure integration into the larger cosmopolitan area of Nairobi City? That will be a very big interest for the committee. The third substantive question I wanted to ask you here, you did not talk very strongly about the public utilities. And I do understand the essence of having a developer and the plan. I don't want to come down into that. But by principle, for the benefit of the residents who are going to be there, have you absolutely solved for the issues of public utilities? Because this has been the biggest problem in Nairobi, and actually even in our major urban areas. If you think about issues of sewerage, for instance, we have got estates that were started generally in Nairobi, and today they are poverty havens, simply because of poor public utilities. You find sewerage bursts, and in some of these areas that you have shared, for instance, you have just told us that Woodley will be moving from 43 units to 1975 units. I mean, that's a big sewerage pressure. That's also a big waste management pressure. If you think about waste management in Nairobi, is there a principle approach to it that the residents who are here can also be able to chime in? And these are also some of the areas of public participation that Senator Sifuna had asked before, whether there was proper public participation. Then the last thing is just about quality of life. Remember, I asked about the dignified living of the residents as they are currently and as they will be in future. And some of these dignified lives manifest in our lives in Nairobi every day. For instance, if I take a simple case of flooding in Nairobi, we know what happens when Nairobi rains. There is a proper incidences that we have seen of serious flooding in Nairobi. Here we're talking about 13 estates. And we are talking about high-rises, which have become a symbol of concrete jungle, even in places like Kileleshwa that has been in the news, and Lavington. Is there thinking about quality of life with regards to vagaries of nature, such as flooding? Those would be substantive questions I wanted you to talk through whether now or in the mix of the conversation that we'll be having with the residents here as we're presenting.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very happy to answer them now. The first question you've asked, and these are good questions, Chair, is with respect to historical tenancy. Chair, it is true, there have been different tenants from, you go to Ziwani from 1939, you know. But any lawyer will tell you that we can only get into an engagement with that person who we have a contract. And the person we have a contract with is the person in our records who is paying the rent. The Rating Act, which you passed in December, also alludes to that. And so, yes, there could be some who are the ones we've contracted, the ones who have the documentation, but they have sublet to people. First of all, the subletting is not legal. It is not acceptable, and it cannot be recognized to us. We can only engage with those in our record who have been given that allotment and who are our tenants, Chair. In many of these estates, the extensions, they're also illegal. The extensions, there are other structures behind there, those structures are not legal. But these people in those structures can get an opportunity to be a tenant in the new development, not to be an owner, to be a tenant in the new development. Remember, they do not pay rent to Nairobi, to the people of Nairobi, you know, because that rent is what comes to the public coffers. It is not to myself, it is to the public coffers. And so the people we recognize. Otherwise, you'll open a huge Pandora's box. Even somebody who came and put a kiosk in Jericho will also want a unit for free, or in Woodley. You know, you cannot go there. So there are also limits as to what we're able to do as a county with respect to those who are our tenants. A tenancy agreement is a legal document that is binding, either implied or implicit, or explicit in terms of a document. But just the arrangement of paying and receiving services gives you, you know, what you call the, you know, an implied contract, you know, that there exists. That yes, you're my tenant, you have that card, you're in our book, our records management, our records office, estate management has you in our database. That is the person who will benefit from this. And by the my team can feel free to chime in at any other point as we move along. And so I know now you will see many people going back to their houses because they had let go of those. You will have, and that's why we must have a very serious process of addressing each case by case. You'll have a case where you have a nephew and an uncle or a niece or two brothers claiming the new unit. You know, we will not, because the person we gave was one individual, maybe who worked the county, has 4 children, it doesn't mean they'll get 4 houses. It doesn't. They'll get 1 unit that is theirs to own. If the others want to come and be tenants, they can then come and they'll get priority to be tenants in the other houses that will be available to them. There are limits to what you can be able to do legally. Chairman, metropolitan management of the city, I think that's a broad question. Of course, we have very good urban planners and in the city. Professionally, the Institute of the Urban Planners will tell you that they're members and of good ranking. Nairobi County is a county that is growing. By the time a lot of the plans previously were done, they were targeting a population of less than 2 million people. Today, we are 7 million in the city of Nairobi during the day, 5 million at night, around 4.5, 5.2 thereabout at night, because many commute to our neighboring cities. We say Kajiado is our bedroom, and so is Kiambu and Machakos, you know. And so with that, there are certain things that must be done, Chair. Chair, in the next 25 years, which is why we're almost concluding with the unveiling of Nairobi Vision 2050 steering committee. In the next 25 years, we'll have 10.5 million people in the city of Nairobi. Of course, there is a huge strain on the infrastructure as we speak. There's need for us to avoid what we call urban decay or urban sprawl, which is why our development control proposals at the assembly are to increase the heights, you know. But it's not increasing the heights without thinking about the amenities and the utilities. And I will break down to you what we're doing with water and sewer. And many will tell you they're getting more water, but I'll explain why and how and what is happening with that respect. Chair, you have urban decay in areas where somebody has to travel from Kamulu to go drop their child to school in Makini, and go to work in Westlands, or go to hospital at Mama Lucy on Kangundo Road. Yet, each of these estates should be able to have all of these amenities. That is what had been before. You'd have a health center, you'd have a market, you have a hospital, you have a school, and possibly many people would work around that area. Now, avoiding urban sprawl is not creating a concrete jungle. Any globally acclaimed urban planner will tell you that is where the world is moving to. You'll be shocked. And this one you can Google and search, or research in any way. In the east coast of the US, the greenest part of the US is Manhattan. That is considered the greenest part based on carbon emissions. And it is that way because they have done what we call densification. With densification, more people are walking, they're using fuel, the emissions are much lower. People can cycle to work, they can walk to work, and that is how you create a city that is, geared towards the future. We're dealing with climate action. Remember, Chair, this is not a Nairobi problem, it's an African context problem. In the 1950s, 22% of the world's population was in Europe, 1% in Africa. Where we're going to, in that 2050, 1 out of 4 people will be living on the continent of Africa. And of those 1 out of 4, 25%, 65% will be in our urban areas. So what we're doing is something that should be replicated in our urban areas on the continent and in Kenya, in our counties. It needs to be replicated. Otherwise, you'll have sprawling informal settlements, you'll have poor quality of life. And so when we're doing these estates, we're putting into mind the need for urban areas, green urban spaces, recreation facilities, water, sewer provision, the issues of traffic. Now, when it comes to, and of course on infrastructure, this is the reason why, and you've mentioned the flooding and the roads etc., why we're still putting up a very big fight as the governors on the issue of the road maintenance fuel levy. And I want to thank the Senate. The Senate has been resolute on this. And a lot of our leaders, especially the Right Honorable Prime Minister, he's spoken about it time and time again, that it cannot be that every Kenyan pays for fuel levy when they buy fuel. They pay for it. Inadvertently, everyone pays for it. And then there are 2 categories of roads, national and county, but you want this money only on the national roads. You come to a city like Nairobi, you find like the major arteries that everyone is talking about and has a problem, Jogo Road, for instance, Agwin Skodek, go to Juja Road, are not managed by the county. The funds are not there with the county, but when people hit those bumps, the name that is easiest to pronounce is Sakaja. Let us have the responsibility with the resources. The members of parliament cannot want to control infrastructure and plan citywide or countywide, yet the area of focus is so narrow. And I gave an example. I don't want to give a specific member, but if you have a member of parliament who has a huge informal settlement and also a middle class settlement, for instance, Upper Hill and Kibra, or Hurlingham and Kawangware, or Westlands and Kangemi, when they get money through Kera, and I don't know why Kenya rural roads is in Nairobi, but anyway, they are. When they get money, they will not put it in Westlands Supermarket or in Jogo Road, which traverses more than 4 constituencies, or Hurlingham, or even areas like Jericho. They will put it where the votes are. But a county government is able to think holistically at the connectivity between these areas. So, Chair, on infrastructure, I think we need more support. And counties should also be allowed to resource it. Remember, RMLF, a component of it, I think 25%, is being securitized. But it's being securitized by the national government. Why is it that the national government can go borrow, securitize, and do all that for their projects, but not for county projects? For you to build a city of the future, the amount of money you need is way more than what we collect, and way more than what we get from equitable share. Even if we push to 450, Nairobi will just move from 20 to 23 or 24. So, Chair, on that one, I just want to thank.
Point of order, Chair. Chair, I think that if the governor restricted himself to answering specifics, we would move a bit faster.
Yeah, specifically what is about infrastructure?
I think you should go to pointed answers, Governor, because if we sit here and listen to all these stories, we might not be here. We know what our position is on RMLF. We know what the position of our party leader is. Maybe you can tell us about your party leader's position. but let us answer the specific questions that have been raised so that
Chair,
we move a bit faster.
Chair, if you remember what you've asked me, you've been very clear about infrastructure. And
Yes,
you've
yes.
in fact asked about
But just, I
potholes.
think the point is just being able to summarize so that we have a lot of heads in the room who can be able to.
So, Chair, on the public utilities, and you know, I mean, if you ask a wide question, you'll get a wide answer. You know, I can't summarize when you've asked generally about metropolitan planning. Public utilities, the example I can give is Woodley. All of these estates, we know that the population is going to go up, definitely. Chair, you know what we're doing with respect to water. I think I've expressed it in this committee. We've had a huge shortage of water in Nairobi. We've been able to increase 140 million liters per day. For Woodley, there's a new line that will affect Hurlingham, Kilimani, Kileleshwa, coming down from Kabete through to Oleodume, to actually the junction of Kungu Karumba, the new road that connects Ngong Road and Langata Road. That line will serve this estate and the estates around it, including Langata, that has never been getting water. Now we have a new line coming through Karen, which has never gotten, by gravity, from through Bomas of Kenya. And so, while you have done that, the point that I really want you to understand is that the Nairobi is water scarce. Yeah? We require 900 million liters a day. But we only had 525 million liters a day. We've added 140, but there is still a gap. There are two projects which I would urge you to help us sort out. On Northern Collector 2 and Maragua 4, that will add another 220 million liters a day to serve these estates. It can be done within the next 2.5 years. The financing request, again, is stuck at the national level. So, Chair, I think I'll leave it at that. Remember, with increased water, 75% of it then must be sewer provision. That is how you calculate it. At least with the Nairobi River Regeneration Program, we're doing a 1.8 by 2 meter trunk sewer, 54 kilometers. That will serve Popin for the next 40 years, but along that corridor. A lot of estates had been, putting direct connections of sewer into the river. But now when you have a trunk sewer on both sides of that one river, remember we start with Nairobi River, phase 2 is Ngong River, which is the most polluted river on the continent, and then Mathare River. With those three, if they also have that component of trunk sewer, and remember these are contracts that are coming with the financing, we should be able to be pretty good when it comes to sewer.
Very well. I think that for the purposes of fairness of time,
yeah, I'll leave it at that.
I'll allow your, did you say your Chief of Staff?
Yeah, Chief Officer.
Chief Officer, I mean,
yeah.
just 2 minutes, in case there is any part that you didn't, capture, and then I'll open it up to the representatives so you can listen to the representative from what you have presented, and then I'll come back to the senators.
No, Chair, just clarification on that infrastructure, because the problem is with everything the governor says, there are questions that arise. Now, I have a very specific question, Governor.
Can I request, Senator?
On that infrastructure alone?
Only?
Yes.
Okay, because I want to be fair to the guests who have also been here.
Absolutely.
Since.
And Chair, you should remember that I am representing these people. So the questions I'm asking are not for Sifuna. I don't stay in Woodley. Governor, when we had this conversation last time about the joint ventures and how we determine how much allocation of houses the county gets, we only made reference to the cost of the land. But if indeed this agreement puts responsibility for critical infrastructure, including those public utilities, on the county government, because an estate, a home, is not just a building. All these amenities are also part of what makes the place livable. If indeed, then the cost of doing water, sewage, public roads, and other utilities I've seen here under clause 23C is on the responsibility of the county government, shouldn't you then get more units in terms of the additional cost that makes this place a livable estate? Otherwise, in my view, if you are a developer of a house, you cannot just build a house and leave and say, we are selling units. You need access to water, you need access to that road infrastructure, you need access to sewerage. What would you say about that, as in, shouldn't we be getting more units given the fact that we as a people of Nairobi now have to pay that cost to make that estate livable?
In an ideal situation, yes, but all on-site infrastructure is covered by the developer. or including where they're doing a school or a social hall, etc. But the off-site infrastructure then comes back to the county government. That is the arrangement. But I'll allow the chief officer to get into more of those details.
Governor, I would advise, because some of us also are engaged in some of these urban planning issues. I would advise that some of these questions, if perhaps there's no concrete answer to them, just take them as feedback. Because my question was very, very specific on the integration of those infrastructure. And that's why you see Senator Sifuna would then have to ask more questions, even in that question that you've given, because that integration concept is not about just the investment that has made holistically in the city. Is how are these integration considered at this development planning phase? Because if, for instance, what Senator Sifuna is asking, if you're going to have a developer who is going to benefit from the infrastructure that you've put as a county, it's an investment you've made. And you need to have a value of the cost of investment that is there, so that your share must then be bolstered based on the contribution that you're making with that investment. But that I'll leave that for another time, because I know that I really want to hear. So can you just perhaps take a note, and then you'll be able to add them when we have heard from the Chair. Or Senator, I can give you 1 minute, and then
Chair,
we go.
My mic has been on for a long time. It's a direct question, really, and a simple one. You know, it's not every time that you have the governor of Nairobi here. These buildings are coming up every day, even before he does what he's doing. The buildings are coming up in Nairobi every day. All of them are still feeding on the same sewer system, the same infrastructure that was established those years. Maybe the question that the people in Nairobi would also want to hear is, I've heard of some development taking place this side of the city, but the biggest population, I think, is the other side, Eastlands, Pumwani, Embakasi, that side. What are we doing about that, the sewer system, especially the sewer system? Every time you drive around that place, burst sewer all the time.
Chair, we can have a substantive meeting on all the water and sewer projects we're doing in the county. There are very, very many, including some that we launched during the tour we had a few weeks ago. There are very many, done by Nairobi Water and Sewerage Company, being undertaken by the county government, being undertaken by Athi Water. So I'll be very open to come and give you a breakdown of all of those projects. Of sewer expansion, recently we are doing Umoja sewer expansion, we are doing some in Eastlands. And the water, that's what I was explaining, the water, the first problem has been just the sheer quantity that is needed vis-a-vis how we're working to increase the quantity that then is received from Nairobi. So I'm very happy, Chair, on a substantive discussion around that. So
just how these facilities are integrated to the entire development. That's the biggest concern we have.
But Chair, I want to assure you.
Just a moment, Governor. Just to say that what Senator Wambua and Senator Sifuna are bringing up are very, very important. Because while the development of these 13 assets are going on, what they are saying is that they are not the only development that are going on. So there is this overall dependency of these facilities by other developments that are going on. We even talk about commercial development that are going on in Nairobi that are depending on sometimes this infrastructure. But we just wanted to have a case for integration. That's all. For how you think about access system, transport system, sewerage system, flooding system, and those kind of things. And you can give us that in writing at opportune time. But I don't want to belabor that, because there are more substantive issues that we need to engage with.
Unless you give you our entire development plan of the county. Chair, the county is an ongoing institution. We build roads every day. We have a plan for the roads. We have a plan for sewer. We have a plan for water. Whether or not we are doing urban renewal, we'll still be doing it. And the assets we are doing will connect to that infrastructure. And remember, this urban renewal plan is not something that someone came up with last week or last year. There's been a lot of professional input. Of course, they're faltered in many areas of execution, but the engineers, the planners, the architects, the transport professionals have been sitting on this for years. Remember, it started during the time of the first administration.